Hello, and now we are going to take a look at finance. We will look at some vocabulary, expressions, idioms, dependent prepositions, all connected with the world of money and finance. Without further ado, let's start with 4 new terms: venture capital, working capital, share capital, and human capital. Venture capital is money given by venture capitalists to a new business, a new startup, in order to grow the business. And they feel that the business has a potential for high growth. It's going to make a lot of money. So a venture capital group will come in and invest hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of pounds, in order to purchase part of the company. Your working capital is the amount of money you have available to you in the business, in your bank, for example. The share capital is money that has been raised from shareholders in a company. And human capital, that's your employees. The workers who are working for you, that's the human capital of a company. For example, they have enough working capital to see them through to the end of the year. They have enough working capital to see them through to the end of the year. Few more words now: credit, collateral, assets, and dividend. If you're in credit, you are doing well. You have money in the bank. Credit is also given to you in the form of a loan. So, for example, we have credit cards. You can buy something, you can pay back later. It's the same with a business. A bank may give a business credit, so they have maybe £50,000 of credit, £50,000 in overdraft, so they can go minus £50,000 in their bank account. Of course, they have to pay it back at some point. Collateral. Collateral, if you take out a loan, then typically you will have to offer something as collateral. Could be some part of your business, it could be a house, it could be a car, but you have to offer something that if you cannot pay back your debts, then you lose your collateral. Assets are everything that the company owns: property, equipment, machinery. A dividend is something paid usually twice a year to shareholders, and typically you have an interim dividend, which is maybe 1 or 2 cents, 1 or 2 pence, and then you have a full dividend at some point as well. And typically they're paid twice a year, and they are a share of the profits in a successful company. Example: he might have to put his house up as collateral if he wants the loan. And a few more words now. We have debt, debit, expenses, costs, fees, and disbursements. A lot of words here. Let's try and get straight through them. So if you are in debt, it means that you owe money to a bank, you owe money to somebody who has supplied something to you, and you haven't paid them yet. A debit is when money is taken from your bank account for something. So you have credits, money in, and you have debits, money out. Every business, every person incurs expenses. Incurs is the verb that usually goes with expenses. So this could be travel expenses, costs for food, cost for rent, for example. And obviously I've just mentioned costs as well. So costs would be additional expenditure for a company, similar to expenses. Fees are usually amounts of money paid to professionals. So you would pay a lawyer or an accountant a fee. And disbursements are expenses that are usually charged by lawyers. It's a little bit of an old-fashioned word now, but you still see it used in legal English. I have to warn you that you are racking up far too much debt and should consider reducing your outgoings. Let's pick apart that sentence for 1 second because it's a little bit more complicated than some of the others. So I have to warn you, I have to tell you that you are racking up. So racking up is a phrasal verb and it means accumulating or adding to. So you are accumulating more debt and you should consider reducing, decreasing, cutting your outgoings. Your outgoings are the money that you are spending. Share, stake, portion, and allocation. So these are fairly similar, these words, but share specifically talks about shares that you might have in a company. If you have 100 Apple shares on the New York Stock Exchange, for example. Also, people check the share price of different companies. I have just checked the share price of Facebook, and today it's $25. A stake is usually referred when you refer to a larger stake in a company. So, for example, Facebook has bought a 20% stake in WhatsApp, for example. Portion can be used in finance. It's rare, but it is possible. Maybe in a presentation you could use it. For example, somebody might say something like Facebook now owns a portion of WhatsApp or Instagram. An allocation is similar to portion, but it's more about somebody giving something to you. So, for example, the CEO was allocated 60,000 shares in the group. He inherited several thousand shares in a major bank from his grandfather. Lucky him. Now we turn to dependent prepositions. So these are words or nouns, verbs, and adjectives which have particular prepositions that follow them. There are many of them, so it's very difficult to go through them all. I've just highlighted some of the most important ones for you, and with these there are no rules, so you simply have to try and remember them. Example, with verbs: to account for, to borrow from, to concentrate on, to learn from, and to rely on. I'll give you one specific example in a second, but let me give you a couple of very brief examples now. So account for would be when you talk about, let's give you the example. These people account for 25% of the workforce at Facebook. Okay, so it means that they are a representative group. Okay, these people account for 25% of the workforce of Facebook. These people represent 25% of the workforce for Facebook. Borrow from, you borrow from a bank, for example. Concentrate on, you have to concentrate on something in order to succeed. I can't help you now, I am concentrating on my business English skills. Learn from, you learn from a teacher. You're learning from me right now. And rely on is to trust. I rely on him to arrive at work at 9 a.m. every day. Dependent on, certain to, optimistic about, and serious about. So these are all adjectives now with prepositions dependent on, certain to, optimistic about, and serious about. So for example, Facebook is dependent on Instagram for 30% of its sales. They are certain to talk about the project during the presentation, so be careful. I'm optimistic about the future of the business, and I am serious about leaving the business. As I said, there will be some more examples in the next module. And we have some nouns here with prepositions. To debate about. So they debated about the project and then they decided to go with project A. The difference between Facebook and Twitter is that Facebook has about 3 or 4 or 5 times as many subscribers. The demand for streaming services in the UK increased exponentially during the COVID-19 pandemic. The cost of Netflix is likely to go up next year. So that concludes this first half of the Business English course on finance. And I hope that you listen to the next course, which will aim to consolidate your knowledge of this incredible language.